He had just become the owner of a restaurant, but he was already facing brutal racism. The waitress contemptuously spills water on him, unaware of who he is. The decision he makes will shock everyone, and her reaction to it will have a devastating impact. Monica Harris walked along the sidewalk. The cracks and unevenness couldn't distract her from her thoughts. On this hot summer day, she wore an elegant dark blue dress, her high heels clicking lightly on the pavement. And at first glance, she seemed like any typical business person on their way to an important meeting. But beneath that appearance, there was a struggle that was only just beginning. Monica, a 28-year-old black woman, was the mayor's daughter. In her eyes there was fire, and in her heart a drive for change. She had just finished another human rights presentation and was heading toward her car, parked near a nearby store. Monica could feel her life changing abruptly. She had long realized that her position allowed her to influence the city, but she also understood that much deeper issues lay ahead. The hum of the city street, the smell of fresh pastries from a cafe, people rushing to their errands, all of this became the background for her thoughts. Suddenly, her eyes fell on Sergeant Johnson, a white cop in his 40s with thick mustache and a tired look, standing by her car. He was focused, writing something on his tablet, but when his eyes met hers, he immediately walked toward her vehicle. Johnson, mocking, with no real reason. "Well, here comes the mayor's daughter. How does it feel to be such an important person and forget to pay for parking?" Monica felt the heat rise to her face. This wasn't the first time she'd encountered prejudice, but this time, something inside her was deeply outraged. She could have ignored it, but not now. Too many people in the city hide their true feelings behind masks. Monica, calmly. "I forgot. Could I just get a warning?" Johnson, looking down at her. "Are you serious? Do you think you're above the rules?" The sergeant continued filling out the ticket without even bothering to look at her. To her, it felt like something more painful than just a parking fine. It was a show of power and humiliation for the sake of it. At that moment, James, her old friend who worked as a lawyer, appeared. He walked over, having seen the situation unfold, and immediately understood what was happening. James, angry. "Are you serious? Do you realize who you're talking to?" Johnson, grinning. "What? Are you on her side now? You think she's better than anyone else just because she's the mayor's daughter?" Monica felt the anger rising in her chest, but she didn't want to make a public spectacle out of it. In moments like these, it was all she could do to maintain control. But Monica couldn't stay silent. She had a plan. She took out her phone and started recording. Monica, internal monologue. "I can't stay silent. This is not just a ticket. It's a reflection of the system. This isn't the first act of bias, and it won't be the last." The sergeant continued filling out the form, laughing, unaware that his actions were being recorded. When he finished, he handed Monica the ticket and casually walked back to his patrol car, not even bothering to apologize. But Monica knew this was just the beginning. In her hands, she didn't just have evidence of her humiliation. She had the opportunity to show the world what was happening in her city, and she couldn't let it pass. With that gesture, she took a step that few could have predicted. "Monica, quietly. I won't stay silent." She sent the video to social media with the hashtag #4Justice, feeling a new resolve begin to take root inside her. This wasn't just a personal incident, it was the beginning of her fight for justice, and now she was part of something much bigger. As soon as Monica's video began to gain traction, it went viral. Right before people's eyes, in real time, a real fight was unfolding. Monica, not hiding her anxiety, watched as the views and shares increased by the hour. Society was buzzing. Comments, both supportive and condemning, flooded in. Monica, looking at her phone, overwhelmed by the flood of messages. So this is the price of truth. But she couldn't afford to get distracted. This wasn't just a story about a parking fine. It was a story about how a system of police impunity had become the norm, something she'd had to battle all her life. A few hours later, journalists started calling her. She answered several, but only one, journalist Thomas Martin, made her feel like her actions could spark real change. He said, "This is more than just a case with a cop, Monica. You've just started a wave." Are you ready to go all the way? At the same time, her father, Mayor Harris, called her. His voice was filled with concern. Mayor Harris, Monica, do you realize what you've done? This is far more than just one cop. This could turn into a full-blown scandal. Do you understand the consequences this could have? Monica fell silent. In her mind, she was thinking about her future, about how this movement could be a turning point. But she already knew there was no turning back. Monica, firmly. Yes, I understand. But if I don't fight, who will? We can't just sit back and wait for the system to fix itself. The public's response was intense. Articles, videos, and reports began to pour in, discussing racism in the police. All the while, the police department couldn't just ignore the situation. Johnson began making excuses, claiming his behavior was a mistake. He said he was internally upset, but his words lacked conviction. To many, it sounded like a disguise for his ingrained racist behavior. But society could no longer turn a blind eye to what was happening in their city. Now, Monica had become a symbol of change. She understood this battle wouldn't be easy, but she was ready for it. Many supported her, but there were also those who doubted. Monica couldn't help but notice how the media had begun to consume her life. Every step she took was now under the camera's scrutiny, and every word she said was being discussed in the news. She sat through interviews, hearing her name spoken by hosts, and realized she had become the center of powerful public pressure. Monica, looking at the camera. I don't want to be just the face of this issue. I want people to understand that this system destroys lives. My fight is the fight of everyone who faces racism every day. The situation was escalating, and the pressure on Monica was growing. Journalists didn't stop asking questions about her personal life, her father, how she was coping with everything happening. Although she knew this was her path, her strength was starting to fade. At this moment, her friend James appeared again. He walked over, noticing her exhaustion. James, are you sure you're ready for what's to come? Monica, sighing. This is bigger than just me. This isn't my personal fight. It's a fight for the truth, for everyone who deals with this every day. Over time, her social media was filled with posts supporting her, but criticism was also inevitable. Many people claimed she was simply trying to use her position for personal gain. But Monica didn't back down. She knew her actions would be a catalyst for change, and so she kept moving forward. Weeks passed, and the pressure became unbearable. Monica found herself in the center of public attention. The media discussed her actions, and the citizens voiced both support and condemnation. Finally, the moment of truth arrived, a press conference where the investigation's results would be announced. Monica entered the room, where officials, journalists, and of course Sergeant Johnson were waiting. He stood there with his head lowered, realizing that his day wasn't just ruined, it was over. Monica, looking at Johnson. This isn't just a mistake. This is a system that needs to change. We can't keep turning a blind eye to what's happening. After her speech, Johnson stood up. His voice shook as he began to speak. Johnson, regretfully. I was wrong. I understand my behavior was unacceptable. I apologize. Monica, standing before him, didn't feel triumphant. She knew this was only the beginning. But her internal struggle was over. Now, she could look at the world differently. Monica, looking at the audience. I don't want this case to be an exception. I want people to start fighting for change. We all deserve justice. Over time, Johnson was fired, and the police department announced reforms. Monica, now a symbol of change, felt that her fight had not been in vain. In that moment she understood. She hadn't just won a victory. She had opened doors for others that had long remained closed.